The Chesapeake and Ohio Canal National Historical Park is a United States national historical park located in the District of Columbia and the states of Maryland and West Virginia. The park was established as a national monument in 1961 by President Dwight D. Eisenhower in order to preserve the neglected remains of the Chesapeake and Ohio Canal along the Potomac River, along with many of the original canal structures. The canal and towpath trail extends from Georgetown, Washington, D.C. to Cumberland, Maryland, a distance of 184.5 miles, and was designated as the first section of U.S. Bicycle Route 50 on October 23, 2013. The Chesapeake and Ohio Canal. Construction on the Chesapeake and Ohio Canal began in 1828 but was not completed until 1850. Even then, the canal fell far short of its intended destination of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Instead, the canal terminated at Cumberland for a total distance of approximately 184.5 miles. Occasionally there was talk of continuing the canal, e.g., in 1874, an 8.4-mile-long tunnel was proposed to go through the Allegheny Mountains, and there was a tunnel built to connect with the Pennsylvania Canal. Even though the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad beat the canal to Cumberland, having arrived 8 years earlier, the canal was not entirely obsolete. It wasn't until the mid-1870s that through improved technology, specifically with larger locomotives and air brakes, the railroad was able to set rates lower than the canal, sealing its fate. The C&O Canal operated from 1831 to 1924 and served primarily as a means to transport coal from the Allegheny Mountains to Washington, D.C. The canal was closed in 1924 in part due to several severe floods that had a devastating impact on the financial condition of the canal. Federal government purchases canal in 1938. The abandoned canal was obtained from the B&O Railroad by the United States in exchange for a loan from the Federal Reconstruction Finance Corporation. The government planned to restore it as a recreation area. Additionally, it was viewed as a project for employment for the jobless during the Great Depression. By 1940, the first 22 miles of the canal were repaired and rewatered from Georgetown to Violet's Lock and returned to operating condition. The first canal clipper boat, giving mule-driven rides, began in 1941. It was later replaced by the John Quincy Adams in the 1960s. The project was halted when the United States entered World War II and resources were needed elsewhere. In 1941, Harry Athey suggested to President Franklin Roosevelt that the canal could be converted into an underground highway or a bomb shelter with its roof for landing airplanes. The whole idea was deemed impractical due to the river's periodic flooding. In 1942, freshets destroyed the rewatered sections of the canal. National Park Service official Arthur E. D. Murray pressed that the canal from Dam No. 1 be restored to supply water to the Dalecarlia Reservoir in case sabotage or bombing destroyed the normal conduits of water. Since this transformed the canal into a concern of national security, in 1942, the War Production Board approved the work. By 1943, Congress had funded the work, repairs were done, and the Park Service resumed boat trips in October 1943. The Congress expressed interest in developing the canal and towpath as a parkway. Because of the flooding from the 1920s to the 1940s, the Army Corps of Engineers proposed building 14 dams that would have permanently inundated 74 miles of towpath, as well as the Monocacy and Antietam aqueducts. Around 1945, the Corps wanted to remove Dam No. 8, which would destroy any hope hope of rewatering the canal above Dam No. 5, as well as put a levee around in the Cumberland area. Much of this was done with the NPS cooperating with the Corps, since maintaining and operating canal all the way to Cumberland was too expensive, as well as wanting to preserve the western parts of the canal. Creation of the national park. The Douglas Hike. The idea of turning the canal over to automobiles was opposed by some, including United States Supreme Court Associate Justice William O. Douglas. In March 1954, Douglas led an 8-day hike of the towpath from Cumberland to D.C. Although 58 people participated in one part of the hike or another, only 9 men, including Douglas, hiked the full 184.5 miles. Following this hike, Justice Douglas formed a committee, later to be known as the C&O Canal Association, in 1957, which would draft plans to preserve and protect the canal. Serving as the chairman of this group, his commitment to the park proved successful. National Monument, then National Park. In 1961, President Dwight Eisenhower made the canal a national monument under the Antiquities Act, but that hardened the opposition to making the canal a national park. There was some support for making the Potomac River a national river instead. Within 10 years, the political climate had changed, and realizing that the National River Plan was unsupportable, the idea of turning the canal into a historic park had little opposition. The Chesapeake and Ohio Canal National Historical Park Act established the canal as a national historical park, and President Richard Nixon signed it into law on January 8, 1971. Floods of 1996. The winter and summer of 1996 saw 2 separate floods. Following a blizzard in January, heavy rains washed away the snow and caused extreme flooding and runoff. This major winter flood swept across 80 to 90% of the canal and towpath, causing high waters, along with the adjacent Potomac River. Erosion due to the floods led to heavy damages to the towpath and much of the infrastructure of the canal and park. Following the winter flood, there was an overwhelming need for volunteers in response to the damages caused. Unfortunately, in September, Hurricane Fran caused even more damage to the canal in multiple parts, requiring workers and volunteers to restore and reconstruct the towpath and re-water the canal. Several major projects that would take a large amount of time and money to complete. Restoration efforts. Today, several organizations work to preserve and restore the park's beauty and history. The C&O Canal Trust, founded in 2007, is the official non-profit partner of the National Park Service. The C&O Canal Association is an all-volunteer citizens organization established in 1954 to help conserve the natural and historical environment of the C&O Canal and the Potomac River Basin. Together they are making progress in restoration efforts of canal infrastructure, fixing eroded sections of the towpath and re-watering sections of the canal to keep it beautiful for both visitors and wildlife, as well as educating the community on the canal's rich history in interactive ways at the 6 different visitor centers along the canal: Georgetown, Great Falls Tavern, Brunswick, Williamsport, Hancock, and Cumberland, operated by the National Park Service and its ranges. Today the canal begins at its 0-mile marker, directly on the Potomac, opposite the Watergate complex. Author John Kelly, writing for the Washington Post in 2004, suggested that the name of the Watergate complex may derive from its location directly adjacent to the 0-mile post of canal, where to this day, the canal's large wooden gate sits directly on the Potomac and adjacent to the complex. Kelly wrote, "A canal lock is quite literally a water gate. Varied in its geography, the canal and its towpath along with the adjacent Potomac offers activities including running, hiking, biking, fishing, boating and kayaking, as well as rock climbing in certain locations. A small portion of the towpath near Harper's Ferry National Historical Park doubles as a section of the Appalachian Trail, and the canal also offers a variety of wildlife and bird-watching opportunities. The park offers rides on two reproduction canal boats, the Georgetown and the Charles F. Mercer, during the spring, summer and autumn. The boats are pulled by mules, and park rangers in historical dress work the locks and boat while presenting a historical program. Presently the park includes nearly 20,000 acres and receives over 4 million recorded visits each year. Flooding continues to threaten historical structures on the canal and attempts at restoration. The Park Service has re-watered portions of the canal, but the majority of the canal does not have water in it. Chesapeake and Ohio Canal National Historical Park now receives more than 5 million recreation visits annually. The NPS visitor centers have displays and interpretive exhibits on the history of the canal. In Allegheny County, Maryland, the park includes the Western Maryland Railroad right-of-way, milepost 126 to milepost 160, listed on the National Register of Historic Places in 1981. In January 2015, the National Park Service proposed adding entrance fees to virtually all access points along the towpath. In February, amid backlash from communities along the canal, the proposal was rescinded. Hiker-biker campsites. The NPS maintains a number of hiker-biker campsites along the towpath, which have a water pump, picnic area, fire pit, and latrine. These are available on a first-come first-served basis, and are about every 12 miles or so along the towpath. Here is a list of them. Gallery. Going upstream from Georgetown 184.5 miles to Cumberland, Maryland.